the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
What it is, security gang, Wednesday, August 10th, 2022. Black Hat is I'm seeing all the pictures and I'm getting all the messages. Are you a Black Hat? Are you a Black Hat? Unfortunately, I'm not. I wish I could be in a hacker summer camp with all of y'all. But unfortunately, I am in Dallas, Texas, the great state of Texas here. Busy work week for me and my team this week. So that took precedent. But hopefully I'll be able to see all of y'all at one of the next big events really, really soon. So shout out to everyone over at Black Hat. I hope you guys are killing it, having a great time networking and meeting some really great people, because we've got a packed show today. Yesterday was Patch Tuesday. You know, I think the guys that run Black Hat, the people that run Black Hat, I should say, should have looked at the calendar. Did we start this on Patch Tuesday? We did. We started this on Patch Tuesday. Let's have that conversation. But before we do, let me grab my amazing double espresso, whatever you're drinking, to power you through the Patch Tuesday recap. Coffee cup cheers. Let's get into it. An already exploited 0 days headlining Microsoft's Patch Tuesday. So Microsoft yesterday released their Patch Tuesday for August, and one major vulnerability is already being exploited. That's tracked CVE 2022-34713. It affects the Microsoft Windows Support Diagnostic tool. It's been exploited by attackers, tricking users into opening and interacting with specially crafted files. The pre-patch exploitation of the issue and the acknowledgement is a variant of a typical kind of, well, we're not sure. We haven't seen anything in the wild yet. We've seen a few isolated cases. They're straight out letting it know. Microsoft, again, I wrote a while ago, the Microsoft doctrine, owning it, stepping up, talking about it, kind of doing it here as well. So there's been a lot of security issues with the Microsoft diagnostic tool. And we're obviously seeing this come to fruition here with this 0 day, and being that it's actively exploited. 121 new vulnerabilities were patched in the August Patch Tuesday. 17 were rated critical, 102 were rated as important. You do the math, that's 119 of 121. The list of these specific vulnerabilities were the ones that were listed as publicly known. So you want to get your Microsoft environments patched, and patched as soon as humanly possible. Another exploit that's been published for a critical VMware security flaw. Our friends over at VMWare, with a race to mitigate a gaping authentication bypass vulnerability in the VMware Workspace ONE Access Identity Manager and vRealize automation product, just got a whole lot more urgent. Just 1 week after the release of the high priority patch with fixes of the issue, they're bringing it to the attention, VMware, that the exploit code that provides the threat actors with a roadmap to obtain admin access without the need to authenticate. CVE 2022-31656 is an impacted product, is now publicly available. There is confirmed malicious code. So we've talked about this several times over the last month or so with this specific VMware vulnerability. You want to make sure you get this patch. They are essentially, VMware is coming out and saying, please take care of this. We beg you, please. Intel also patched several vulnerabilities yesterday in their firmware and management software. All in all, they published 27 security advisories detailing roughly 60 vulnerabilities across firmware, software libraries, and endpoint and data center management products. The most severe of all, based on its CVSS score, is a privilege escalation bug in the Intel-maintained Open AMT Cloud Toolkit, an open source toolkit for integrating OOB management solutions, tracked as CVE 2022-25899 with a CVSS score of 9 or 0.9. The vulnerability is described as an authentication bypass that an unauthenticated attacker may exploit over the network. Intel recommends updating to versions 2.0.2 or 2.2.2.2, which all address the security issue. An additional critical vulnerability that Intel addressed this week is their Data Center Manager, a solution for monitoring operational information of devices within the data center. Issue tracked as CVE 2022-21225. CVSS score of 9 or 0.0 is described as an improper access control that an authenticated attacker could exploit to escalate privileges. The advisory for this vulnerability details 3 other bugs in the data center manager, including improper access control issues, initializations, and improper input validation bugs. All of those require your attention on the Intel side. Also, SAP patches an information disclosure vulnerability in their business objects. So on Tuesday, the SAP announced the release of 5 new and 2 updated security notes as part of its August 2022 security patch day. Of the 5 new security notes, 4 address information disclosure vulnerabilities, 3 of which impacts SAP's business objects BI platform. The most severe of those, CVE 2022-32245, CVSS score of 8.2, which could allow an unauthenticated attacker to retrieve sensitive information in plain text over the network. A threat actor could also put a load on the application, automate the exploitation of the flaw, and have data transferred permanently over the network. So definitely significant. Make sure you get your SAP patched. We'll move to a warning about an active exploitation of the UnRAR software for Linux systems. This is coming after CISA issued yesterday a security flaw in the UnRAR utility to its known exploited vulnerabilities catalog based on evidence of active exploitation, tracked as CVE 2022-303333, CVSS score of 7.5. The issue concerns a path traversal vulnerability in the Unix versions of UnRAR that can be triggered upon extracting a maliciously crafted RAR archive. This means an adversary could exploit the flaw to drop arbitrary files on target systems that have the utility installed simply by decompressing the file. The vulnerability was revealed by Sonar Source researcher Simon Scannell in late June. Well done, Simon. Not much is known about the nature of the attack, but the disclosure is evidence of a growing trend wherein threat actors are quick to scan for vulnerable systems after flaws are publicly disclosed and take the opportunity to launch malware and ransomware campaign. 15 minutes. Within 15 minutes, they start scanning. 15. So we'll take that. Cloudflare employees were also hit by the same attackers behind the Twilio breach. Cloudflare says some of its employees' credentials were also stolen in an SMS phishing attack similar to the one that led to the Twilio network being breached last week. However, the attackers got their hands on Cloudflare employee accounts. They failed to breach its systems after their attempts to log in were blocked when they didn't have access to the victim's company-issued FIDO2 compliant security keys. Well done. Around the same time Twilio was attacked, we saw an attack with very similar characteristics targeting Cloudflare. You can see the controls there in place are really effective. So Cloudflare's Okta page was duplicated, essentially, and that's how they were trying to retrieve credentials. But MFA came in and did what MFA is supposed to do here. We can celebrate MFA. We can say it's a good thing they didn't use text SMS, and they were using a FIDO key, using a mobile app. Very effective. If you go back to YouTube, and go to our podcast, cyberhubpodcast.com on YouTube. I got a video about hacking MFA with Roger Grimes of Know Before. We really went into a lot of depth over this specific threat vector, and I think it's really worth it here to realize that this took place. Twilio worked with other companies targeted by similar attack around the same time as well. So Twilio obviously on having to deal with the fallout of that. So that stays in mind. And finally, Wired had this really interesting story. GitHub is moving to guard open source against supply chain attacks. Essentially, what they want to roll out is code signing that will beef up the security of any open source projects. Ideally, what they're hoping to do is essentially use some sort of code signing at the end of every code in order to authenticate it and get a signature on there to ensure that there's no backdoors built into the code. How and how well will this be received remains to be seen. It's good to see that GitHub is starting to look at this and try to find ways to get this done. There's a move to look at, how do you encrypt this and so forth. The story is worth a read, and the links in our show notes. You can go do that there, folks. That's it for our show today. I hope you all enjoy Vegas. We'll be back tomorrow to wrap up this week and head into hopefully sail into the weekend. But until then, have a great rest of your day and stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.